The mysterious connection. Jack Harrison was the kind of man who never believed in coincidences. At 38, he had spent most of his life meticulously building a career and fortune that many envied. He owned a chain of high-end restaurants across the city, lived in a penthouse with a view of the skyline, and had a pristine reputation for both philanthropy and business acumen. Life, by all accounts, was perfect, yet beneath the surface of his success, Jack felt an emptiness, a nagging sense that something important was missing. He never paid much attention to the small crescent-shaped birthmark on his right wrist. It had been there since birth, a tiny quirk of nature. Some people found it fascinating, a unique feature that sparked comments and questions. Jack, on the other hand, had always dismissed it as just another mark, until the day a little girl's words changed everything. It was a cloudy Sunday afternoon. Jack was visiting one of his newest restaurants, overseeing the final details before the grand opening. He enjoyed being hands-on with his ventures, ensuring that every aspect reflected his personal touch. After a long day, he decided to take a short walk through the nearby park to clear his mind. As he strolled, his thoughts were interrupted by the sound of playful laughter. A group of children ran past him, chasing one another around a fountain, their joy infectious. Jack smiled faintly, reminded of simpler days from his childhood that seemed so far away now. "Hey, mister." A small voice broke through his thoughts. He turned to find a little girl standing a few feet away, her bright green eyes wide with curiosity. She couldn't have been more than 8 years old, her dark brown hair tied into pigtails. She held a stuffed rabbit in her hands, clutched tightly as though it were a prized possession. "Yes," Jack responded with a polite smile, kneeling down to meet her at eye level. The girl stared at him for a moment, her expression one of intense focus, as if she were trying to solve a great mystery. Then, without warning, she pointed at his wrist. "You have a mark like my grandma." Jack blinked, unsure of what to make of her statement. "A mark?" She nodded, her small finger still aimed at his wrist. "The birthmark, a crescent. My grandma has one just like that." For the first time in years, Jack felt a shiver run down his spine. He instinctively glanced at his wrist, where the faint crescent birthmark had always been. It was a distinctive shape, not something you'd expect many people to have. The girl's words unsettled him more than he cared to admit. "That's interesting," Jack said, trying to brush off the odd feeling creeping into his mind. "What's your name?" "Sophie," she said, flashing a toothy grin. "My grandma's over there. Want to meet her?" Jack hesitated. This was a strange situation, but something about the girl's innocent demeanor made him curious. Before he could reply, Sophie grabbed his hand and began leading him toward a nearby bench where an elderly woman sat, knitting quietly in the shade of a large oak tree. As they approached, the old woman looked up. Her weathered face broke into a warm smile when she saw Sophie, but her eyes widened when they landed on Jack. The knitting needles in her hands stilled, and for a moment, the only sound was the rustling of the wind through the trees. "Grandma," Sophie called, releasing Jack's hand and running to the woman's side. "I found him. The man with a mark like yours." The elderly woman's expression shifted from surprise to something far deeper, recognition. Jack could feel her gaze piercing through him as if she were seeing someone she hadn't laid eyes on in decades. She slowly placed her knitting aside and stood, her hands trembling slightly. "Jack," she whispered, her voice fragile but filled with emotion. "Jack Harrison." The sound of his name on her lips caught him off guard. How did this woman know his name? He had never met her before, had never even seen her around. And yet there was something about her presence that stirred a strange familiarity within him. "Yes," Jack replied cautiously, taking a step closer. "That's my name. Have we met before?" The woman shook her head, but her eyes never left his. "No, we haven't. But I know you, Jack. I've been waiting for this day for a long time." Jack's confusion deepened. His mind raced, searching for any possible explanation for this bizarre encounter. He opened his mouth to ask her what she meant, but before he could speak, she raised her hand, her left wrist turned upward. There on her wrinkled skin was a birthmark identical to his. A small crescent shape etched like a forgotten symbol from a past neither of them fully understood. "I see it now," the woman said softly. "It's just like hers." Jack's pulse quickened. "Like whose?" The woman's eyes filled with tears, but she smiled through them, her voice trembling as she spoke. "Your mother's." The weight of those two words hit Jack like a tidal wave. He felt his knees weaken, and for a moment, the ground seemed to shift beneath him. His mother? How could this woman possibly know anything about his mother? Jack had been adopted as an infant and knew nothing about his biological parents. His adoptive parents had told him very little, and he had never pressed them for more. Sophie looked between the two adults, her innocent face a picture of confusion. "Grandma, what's going on?" The elderly woman reached down and patted Sophie's head gently. "I think it's time for Jack to hear a story, my dear." Jack swallowed hard, his throat suddenly dry. His mind whirled with 1,000 questions, but he couldn't form any of them into words. All he knew was that he needed to hear whatever this woman had to say. "I don't understand," he finally managed, his voice shaky. "Who? Who are you?" The woman smiled again, though this time there was a sadness in her eyes. "My name is Evelyn, Jack, and I knew your mother a long time ago." Evelyn gestured for Jack to sit beside her on the bench. He complied, though his legs felt heavy with the weight of the moment. Sophie climbed into her grandmother's lap, her wide eyes filled with wonder. Evelyn took a deep breath, gathering her thoughts. "It's a complicated story, Jack, but it begins with a woman named Lily, your mother. And it all revolves around that birthmark on your wrist." Jack's heart pounded in his chest as he listened, knowing that whatever Evelyn was about to reveal would change everything he thought he knew about his life. The mysteries surrounding his birth were about to unravel, and he wasn't sure if he was ready for the truth. A hidden past. Jack sat frozen on the bench, Evelyn's words echoing in his mind. He tried to process what she had just said, but it felt like a dream, a surreal moment where reality twisted around him. His heartbeat thrummed in his ears as he watched the elderly woman waiting for her to continue the story. "You knew my mother?" Jack asked, his voice barely audible, as though speaking too loudly might shatter the fragile moment. Evelyn nodded, her face soft with both memories and sorrow. "Yes, I knew Lily well. She was a kind soul, full of life, but also burdened with secrets. Secrets she carried alone, secrets about you." Jack shifted uncomfortably. "Secrets? What do you mean?" Evelyn hesitated, her fingers trembling slightly as she stroked Sophie's hair. The little girl, sensing the gravity of the conversation, remained quiet, her wide eyes fixed on her grandmother. Evelyn took a deep breath before answering. "Lily wasn't just any woman," Evelyn began, her voice tinged with a sadness that seemed to stretch back decades. "She came from a long line of people who were different, special, in ways most people couldn't understand. She was part of a legacy passed down through generations, marked by that very birthmark you both share." Jack instinctively glanced down at his wrist again. The crescent-shaped birthmark had always been there, but he had never paid it much attention. Now, with every word Evelyn spoke, it took on new significance as if it were a key unlocking pieces of his own identity. "What does the birthmark mean?" Jack asked, unable to suppress the growing sense of urgency in his voice. "Why did my mother have it? Why do I have it?" Evelyn's eyes darkened slightly as she continued. "The crescent is not just a mark of birth, it's a symbol of protection, a sign of a rare gift passed down through your family. Your mother, Lily, was part of an ancient line that guarded something precious, something powerful." Jack leaned forward, hanging on every word. "Something powerful? What do you mean?" Evelyn looked away for a moment, as if the memories weighed heavily on her. "It's not easy to explain. There are certain families in this world, Jack, who have been chosen to protect a sacred knowledge, a kind of wisdom that most people can't comprehend. Your mother's family was one of those protectors, and that birthmark you share, it's the sign of those chosen to inherit that responsibility." Jack frowned, struggling to grasp the enormity of what she was saying. "Chosen? But I've never felt special. I don't have any kind of powers or gifts." Evelyn smiled faintly. "That's because you were hidden, Jack. You were adopted to keep you safe. Your mother, she gave you up not because she didn't love you, but because she loved you too much to let the dangers of her world touch you." Jack felt a lump rise in his throat. His hands clenched into fists as he thought of the mother he had never known. "Why didn't she come for me? Why didn't she tell me any of this?" "She wanted to, when it was too dangerous," Evelyn explained. "After you were born, your family was being hunted. There were those who wanted to use the power your family guarded for their own gain. She knew that if they found out about you, they would stop at nothing to get to you. So she did the hardest thing any mother could do. She gave you up to protect you." The revelation hit Jack like a punch to the gut. He had always wondered why his biological parents had abandoned him, had always imagined they didn't want him. But now, hearing that his mother had made such a painful sacrifice, he felt a strange mix of anger and gratitude. "I don't even know who she was," Jack said, his voice cracking. "I don't know anything about her." "You know more than you think," Evelyn replied softly. "Your birthmark connects you to her. It's a reminder that you're part of something much larger than yourself." Jack stared at the ground, his thoughts swirling in a chaotic storm. He had spent his entire life chasing success, trying to build a legacy for himself. But now it seemed that his legacy had already been written long before he was even born. Sophie, who had been quiet throughout the conversation, finally spoke. "Grandma, are we like him? Do we have special powers too?" Evelyn smiled down at her granddaughter and gently kissed her forehead. "No, my love, your mother didn't have the birthmark, so you're not part of that line. But that doesn't make you any less special." Sophie seemed satisfied with that answer, but Jack wasn't. He had too many questions, and he needed answers. "What happened to my mother?" Jack asked, his voice filled with tension. If she gave me up to protect me, what happened to her? Evelyn's expression grew even more somber, her eyes glistening with unshed tears. Lily, she didn't survive, Jack. The people who were after her, after your family, they eventually found her. She was killed when you were just a baby. Jack's heart clenched painfully in his chest. The mother he had never known was gone forever, taken from him by forces he didn't even understand. He had spent his life searching for meaning, for a connection to his past, and now that he had found it, it was too late. I'm sorry, Evelyn whispered, her voice thick with emotion. I wanted to tell you sooner, but I was sworn to secrecy. Your mother entrusted me with this knowledge, and I had to protect you from it until the time was right. Jack's mind raced, trying to piece together the fragments of the story. He felt a deep sense of loss for the mother he never had the chance to know, but also a growing curiosity about the legacy he had inherited. You said she was protecting something, Jack said. Something powerful. What was it? Evelyn hesitated, clearly weighing her words carefully. It's not something I can explain fully right now. The power your mother's family guarded is ancient, and it has to do with knowledge. Knowledge that could change the world if it fell into the wrong hands. Jack narrowed his eyes, feeling a sense of determination well up inside him. I want to know everything. I want to know who these people are, why they came after my family, and what I'm supposed to do with this birthmark. Evelyn nodded solemnly. I understand. But be warned, Jack. Once you start down this path, there's no going back. The people who came after your mother, they'll come after you too if they find out who you are. Jack's jaw tightened. Let them come. I've spent my whole life feeling like something was missing. Now I know what it is, and I'm not running from it. Evelyn's gaze softened, pride flickering in her eyes. You're your mother's son, Jack. She would be proud of the man you've become. For a moment, Jack felt a strange peace wash over him. He had spent years searching for answers, for a connection to his past, and now, despite the danger, he felt closer to the truth than ever before. But there was still so much he didn't know, so much that remained hidden. As the sun began to dip behind the trees, casting long shadows across the park, Jack made a silent promise to himself. He would uncover the truth about his family, about the legacy his mother had died to protect, and he would do whatever it took to honor her memory. But as he stood to leave, Evelyn reached out and grabbed his hand, her grip surprisingly strong for a woman her age. Jack, she said, her voice urgent, there's something you need to know. Something I haven't told you yet. Jack looked down at her, his heart pounding in his chest. What is it? Evelyn's eyes locked onto his, filled with fear and determination. There are others with the birthmark, and they're looking for you. The hidden threat, the sun dipped below the horizon, casting long shadows across the park as Jack and Evelyn sat in the fading light. The weight of Evelyn's last words hung heavy in the air, each syllable echoing with a sense of impending danger. Jack's mind raced, grappling with the enormity of the situation. So there are others like me? Jack asked, trying to maintain his composure. Others with the birthmark. Evelyn nodded solemnly. Yes, there are. And they're not just scattered individuals. They form a secretive network deeply entrenched in the fabric of society. Some use their knowledge for good, while others seek to exploit it for their own gain. Your birthmark marks you as one of them, and that's why you're a target. Jack felt a shiver run down his spine. The idea of being hunted by people who wanted something he barely understood was both terrifying and intriguing. But why haven't I known about this before? Why was I kept in the dark? Evelyn's eyes were filled with regret. It was a measure of protection, Jack. Your mother and father hid you away to keep you safe. They hoped you would never have to know about the danger. The fewer people who know about this world, the better. Jack's thoughts churned as he considered Evelyn's words. And now that I know, what am I supposed to do? Evelyn looked at him, her expression a mixture of sadness and resolve. For now, you need to stay hidden and learn more about your legacy. There are people who can help you. You must be cautious. Trust is a luxury you can afford. Jack glanced at the park, now bathed in the soft light of street lamps. He felt as if he had stepped into a different world, one where every shadow and whisper held a hidden threat. What happens next? Evelyn took a deep breath, her eyes thoughtful. There's an old ally of your family who might be able to guide you. His name is Lucas. He lives in a secluded area, far from the city. He's been waiting for you to come to him. I'll help you get in touch with him. Jack nodded, determination hardening his features. Then let's not waste any time. As they prepared to leave the park, Jack couldn't shake the feeling that their conversation had drawn the attention of someone or something lurking in the shadows. The park, once a place of simple solace, now felt like a battleground where unseen forces were at play. Evelyn drove Jack to her modest home, a quaint cottage on the outskirts of town. It was a far cry from Jack's luxurious penthouse, but it exuded a sense of warmth and safety that he desperately needed. Inside, Evelyn made tea and settled into a well-worn armchair, her movements precise but tinged with a weariness that spoke of long years burdened with secrets. "Tell me more about this Lucas," Jack said as he sipped his tea, trying to stave off the chill that had settled in his bones. Evelyn's gaze grew distant as she spoke. "Lucas is an old friend of your family. He's well versed in the ancient knowledge and has been a guardian of it for many years. He's lived off the grid for decades, away from prying eyes. If anyone can help you understand what's happening, it's him." Jack leaned forward, his curiosity piqued. "And what exactly does he know? What can he teach me?" Evelyn sighed, her eyes clouded with the weight of her own experiences. "Lucas knows the history and the lore of your family's legacy. He can explain the significance of the birthmark and the responsibilities it entails. Most importantly, he can teach you how to protect yourself from those who seek to exploit your birthright." Jack's mind was already racing ahead, planning his next steps. "When can we leave to see him?" Evelyn looked at him, her expression serious. "It's not a simple journey. Lucas lives in a remote area, and the path there is fraught with challenges. But if you're ready to face them, I'll take you." The evening passed quickly, filled with preparations and discussions about the journey ahead. Jack's thoughts were a whirlpool of emotions, fear, excitement, and a growing sense of purpose. As he prepared for the trip, he couldn't shake the feeling that he was on the brink of discovering a new chapter in his life, one that would redefine everything he thought he knew. The next morning, Evelyn and Jack set out on the road. The drive was long, winding through dense forests and remote towns. Evelyn spoke little during the journey, her focus on navigating the unfamiliar terrain. Jack, in contrast, was lost in thought, reflecting on the gravity of the situation. After several hours, they arrived at the edge of a dense forest. The road narrowed, turning into a gravel path that seemed to lead into the heart of the woods. Evelyn pulled over, and they both stepped out of the car, the air crisp and filled with the earthy scent of pine. "This is as far as I can take you," Evelyn said, her voice steady but filled with an undercurrent of concern. "The rest of the way is on foot. Lucas's place is well hidden to avoid detection." Jack nodded, a sense of resolve settling over him. "Thank you, Evelyn, for everything." Evelyn gave him a reassuring smile. "Be careful, Jack. Remember, trust is scarce. Not everyone you meet will have your best interests at heart." With that, Jack took a deep breath and began the trek into the forest. The path was narrow, overgrown with brambles, and hidden by the thick canopy overhead. The further he walked, the more isolated he felt, as if the world beyond the trees was slipping away. After what felt like hours of hiking, Jack began to notice subtle signs of human presence: trails worn into the forest floor, faint smoke drifting through the trees, and the distant sound of a river. The forest opened up to reveal a small clearing with a modest cabin nestled among the trees. The cabin looked old but well-maintained, its wooden walls blending seamlessly with the natural surroundings. Jack approached the cabin cautiously, his senses on high alert. As he neared the door, he noticed a hand-carved sign that read Lucas, a simple but effective marker. Before he could knock, the door creaked open, revealing an older man with a weathered face and sharp eyes. He wore simple clothes, a long coat that seemed to have been made for the rugged life he led. His gaze swept over Jack, assessing him with a mix of curiosity and caution. "You must be Jack," Lucas said, his voice deep and resonant. "Come in." Jack stepped inside, and the warmth of the cabin enveloped him. The interior was surprisingly cozy, with a crackling fireplace, shelves filled with books, and various artifacts scattered about. Lucas gestured for Jack to sit at a wooden table, and Jack obliged, his nerves still on edge. Lucas took a seat opposite him, his eyes never leaving Jack's face. "Evelyn has told me a lot about you. I'm glad you made it here safely." Jack nodded, feeling a mixture of relief and apprehension. "I need to understand what's going on. Evelyn told me that I'm part of a legacy, that my birthmark means something important. Can you explain?" Lucas leaned back, studying Jack with a thoughtful expression. "Your birthmark is a symbol of the legacy of your family. It signifies that you're part of a lineage entrusted with guarding ancient knowledge that has been passed down through generations." Jack felt a surge of impatience. "What kind of knowledge? What does it mean for me?" Lucas's gaze grew serious. "The knowledge is about a powerful artifact, an ancient relic that holds immense power. The relic is tied to the birthmark and can influence the fate of the world if it falls into the wrong hands." Jack's heart raced. "And how does this affect me? What should I do?" Lucas sighed, the weight of his words evident in his expression. "You must learn to protect yourself and understand the responsibilities that come with your heritage. There are those who will use the artifact for their own ends, and they'll come after you if they learn of its existence." Jack nodded, determination hardening his resolve. "I'm ready to learn. I want to know everything." Lucas's eyes softened slightly. "Very well. We'll begin your training immediately. There's much to learn, and the path ahead won't be easy." As Lucas began to outline the training and the dangers that lay ahead, Jack felt a renewed sense of purpose. He was no longer just a man seeking answers. He was now part of something much larger, a legacy that spanned centuries and held the potential to alter the course of history. The journey had only just begun, and Jack knew that every step he took would bring him closer to understanding his true role in the grand tapestry of his family's history. The Guardian's Path. The first rays of morning sunlight filtered through the gaps in the cabin's wooden walls, casting soft patterns on the floor. Jack awoke to the gentle crackle of the fireplace and the aroma of freshly brewed coffee. The previous day had been a whirlwind of revelations, and he felt both exhilarated and overwhelmed. He was about to embark on a journey that would reshape his understanding of himself and the world. Lucas was already awake, moving with a practiced ease around the cabin. He placed a steaming mug of coffee on the table before Jack, who joined him at the wooden table. The aroma was rich and earthy, grounding him in the present moment. "Good morning," Lucas greeted, his voice steady. "Today we start your training. There's much to cover and time is of the essence." Jack nodded, his mind still processing the information from the previous day. "What exactly will we be doing?" Lucas took a sip of his coffee, his gaze thoughtful. "We'll begin with the basics of the knowledge you've inherited. The relic your family guarded is not just a physical object. It's a repository of ancient wisdom, and understanding it requires both mental and physical preparation. You need to be ready for the challenges ahead." Jack listened intently, trying to calm the racing thoughts in his head. "What are the challenges?" Lucas's eyes narrowed, his expression serious. "The challenges come in many forms. There are those who want the relic for their own gain, powerful individuals and organizations who will stop at nothing to obtain it. You must learn to defend yourself and understand the significance of the relic before it's too late." With that, Lucas led Jack to a small clearing behind the cabin. The area was surrounded by dense forest, and the ground was littered with rocks and uneven terrain. In the center of the clearing stood a wooden post with various tools and training equipment arranged around it. "Your training will start with physical conditioning," Lucas explained, pointing to the equipment. "You need to be in top shape to face the physical demands of your role. We'll also work on mental exercises to sharpen your focus and intuition." Jack felt a knot of apprehension in his stomach. He had always prided himself on his mental acuity, but the physical training was new territory. He followed Lucas's instructions, starting with a series of rigorous exercises designed to build strength and endurance. Each movement was precise, aimed at enhancing agility and resilience. Lucas observed Jack closely, offering guidance and encouragement. "Focus on your breathing," he instructed. "The more aware you are of your body, the better you can control it." As the sun climbed higher, Jack's muscles ached, but he pressed on, driven by a sense of urgency and a desire to prove himself. The training was grueling, but each drop of sweat and every aching muscle felt like a step toward understanding his new reality. After several hours of physical training, Lucas transitioned to mental exercises. They sat cross-legged on the ground, surrounded by the tranquil sounds of the forest. Lucas guided Jack through a series of meditation and visualization techniques designed to enhance his focus and intuition. "The knowledge you're seeking is not just about strength," Lucas said as they finished the mental exercises. "It's also about understanding and perception. The relic you're connected to is said to hold secrets that can change the course of history. To access those secrets, you need to be able to read between the lines of what's visible." Jack closed his eyes, following Lucas's instructions. He focused on his breathing, trying to clear his mind of distractions. As he delved deeper into the meditation, he felt a strange sensation, a connection to something ancient and profound, as if he were tapping into a well of wisdom that had been dormant within him. Lucas watched Jack with a mix of approval and concern. "You're making good progress, but remember, this is just the beginning. The real challenge will come when you face those who seek the relic for their own purposes." As the days passed, Jack's training continued, each day blending into the next in a rigorous routine of physical conditioning and mental exercises. Lucas was a demanding instructor, but he also provided valuable insights into the history and significance of Jack's legacy. One evening, after a particularly grueling day, Jack and Lucas sat by the fireplace, the warmth of the fire providing a welcome respite. Lucas opened an old leather-bound book, its pages filled with intricate symbols and diagrams. "This," Lucas said, placing the book on the table, "is a record of the knowledge your family has protected. It contains information about the relic, its powers, and the history of those who have guarded it." Jack's eyes widened as he leafed through the pages. The symbols were unfamiliar, but there was something captivating about them, an aura of mystery that seemed to draw him in. "What do these symbols mean?" Jack asked, his fingers tracing the ancient text. Lucas pointed to a particular diagram. "This symbol represents the core of the relic's power. It's said to hold the key to unlocking its true potential. But be warned, understanding these symbols requires more than just reading. It involves connecting with the essence of the relic, which is not an easy task." Jack nodded, absorbing the information. "How will I know if I'm ready to confront those who seek the relic?" Lucas's gaze grew serious. You'll know when the time comes. Your training will prepare you, but your instincts will guide you. Trust in yourself and the knowledge you've gained. The path ahead is fraught with danger, but it's also filled with opportunities for growth and discovery. As the days turned into weeks, Jack felt a profound transformation within himself. He was no longer just an ordinary man. He was becoming a guardian of ancient wisdom, connected to a legacy that spanned generations. The challenges he faced during his training were both physical and mental, pushing him to his limits but also expanding his understanding of his own potential. One night, as Jack lay in bed, he couldn't shake the feeling that something significant was about to happen. His dreams were filled with fragmented images, ancient symbols, shadowy figures, and a sense of urgency that seemed to pull him toward an unknown destination. The following morning, Lucas approached Jack with a serious expression. We've received word that someone is looking for you. They've discovered your connection to the relic, and they're coming closer. It's time for you to put your training to the test. Jack's heart raced as he absorbed Lucas's words. The reality of the danger he faced was no longer a distant threat. It was imminent. He had prepared as much as he could, but the uncertainty of what lay ahead still weighed heavily on him. Lucas placed a reassuring hand on Jack's shoulder. You're ready, Jack. Remember everything you've learned and trust in yourself. The knowledge you gained will guide you, but be vigilant and stay true to your purpose. With that, Jack gathered his belongings and prepared for the journey ahead. The path was fraught with uncertainty, but he felt a renewed sense of purpose. He was no longer just seeking answers. He was preparing to face the very forces that sought to control the legacy he had inherited. As Jack set out, the forest seemed to close in around him, the shadows growing longer and more ominous. He was stepping into a world that was both ancient and modern, where every step was fraught with danger and every decision could alter the course of his destiny. Shadows of the past, the dense forest loomed around Jack as he pressed forward, the crunch of leaves beneath his boots the only sound that punctuated the eerie silence. The air was thick with the scent of pine and earth, and the light filtering through the canopy seemed to dim with every step he took. The forest, once a place of solace and training, now felt like a labyrinth of secrets and hidden dangers. Jack had left the safety of Lucas's cabin and ventured into the deeper reaches of the forest, guided by the knowledge that someone, or something, was searching for him. The sense of urgency that had plagued him was now a constant companion, driving him onward despite the creeping fatigue. As dusk fell, Jack made his way to a small clearing, where he had arranged to meet a contact who was supposed to provide information about the threats he faced. The clearing was dimly lit by the last rays of sunlight, casting long shadows that danced across the ground. A small campfire crackled in the center, and Jack could see the silhouette of a figure waiting by it. The figure turned as Jack approached, revealing a tall, slender woman with sharp features and piercing green eyes. She wore a dark cloak that blended with the shadows, and her presence seemed to radiate a mixture of calm and intensity. Jack, she said, her voice smooth and commanding. I'm Alana. Lucas sent me. Jack nodded, his eyes wary. What do you know about the people looking for me? Alana gestured for him to sit by the fire. They are known as the Covenant, an ancient organization dedicated to acquiring and controlling powerful artifacts. Your birthmark is a sign that you are connected to one of these artifacts, and they will stop at nothing to possess it. Jack sat down, the warmth of the fire contrasting with the chill of the forest. Why are they so interested in this artifact? What makes it so powerful? Alana's gaze was intense as she looked at Jack. The artifact is said to hold the key to manipulating reality itself. It's a source of immense power that can alter the course of events, influence people's actions, and even reshape the world. That's why the Covenant is so determined to get their hands on it. They believe controlling it will give them unparalleled influence. Jack's mind raced with the implications. And how do I protect myself from them? What should I do? Alana leaned closer, her expression serious. You need to stay hidden and be prepared for anything. The Covenant has agents everywhere, and are skilled at tracking and capturing their targets. I'll help you understand their methods and provide you with the tools you need to defend yourself. But remember, they are not to be underestimated. As the night deepened, Alana began to explain the strategies and techniques that Jack would need to employ. She spoke of surveillance methods, counterintelligence, and self-defense tactics. Each piece of information was a vital component of the puzzle Jack needed to solve. We'll need to move quickly, Alana said, her eyes scanning the surrounding forest. The Covenant operates in cells, and their agents are skilled at blending into their surroundings. We need to stay one step ahead. Jack listened intently, absorbing every detail. He felt a mixture of anxiety and determination, knowing that his training and preparation were about to be put to the ultimate test. As dawn approached, Alana and Jack prepared to leave the clearing. They packed their belongings and made their way through the forest, navigating by the stars and the faint trails left by previous travelers. Jack's senses were heightened, every rustle of leaves and snap of a twig causing him to pause and listen. Their journey took them to a hidden underground bunker, a secure location where Alana had arranged for Jack to stay while they planned their next move. The bunker was equipped with state-of-the-art surveillance and communication equipment, a stark contrast to the rustic cabin where Jack had trained. Once inside, Alana set up a series of monitors and began to scan for any signs of Covenant activity. Jack watched as she worked, her movements efficient and precise. The air inside the bunker was filled with a low hum of machinery and the occasional beeping of the monitors. "Here's what we're dealing with," Alana said, pointing to a series of images and data on the screens. "These are known agents of the Covenant. They're highly trained and dangerous. If you encounter them, avoid direct confrontation if possible. Your safety is the priority." Jack studied the images, the faces of the Covenant agents now etched into his memory. "How will I know if they're after me? What should I look for?" Alana's eyes were focused as she answered. "Covenant agents are skilled at remaining undetected, but they have certain patterns. Look for individuals who seem out of place or who are unusually interested in your activities. They may use various methods to gather information, including surveillance and infiltration." Jack nodded, feeling a sense of foreboding. "What happens if they find me?" Alana's expression grew grave. "If they find you, they'll likely try to capture you and extract information about the relic. They'll use any means necessary, including manipulation and coercion. That's why it's crucial to stay vigilant and always be one step ahead." The hours passed in a flurry of activity as Alana and Jack prepared for the days ahead. Jack trained with renewed intensity, honing his skills and adapting to the new information he had received. The bunker became a temporary sanctuary, a place where he could regroup and strategize. One evening, as Jack was reviewing the information on the monitors, he received an encrypted message from Lucas. The message was brief but urgent. "The Covenant has intensified their search. They're closing in on your location. Be cautious." Jack's heart raced as he relayed the message to Alana. "What does this mean for us?" Alana's eyes narrowed as she processed the information. "It means we need to move quickly. The Covenant's search will become more aggressive and their tactics will become more sophisticated. We need to relocate and find a new safe house." With a sense of urgency, Jack and Alana packed their belongings and prepared to leave the bunker. As they made their way through the forest, Jack's mind was filled with a mix of anxiety and determination. The reality of the danger they faced was now a tangible threat, and every decision they made would impact their safety and the success of their mission. As night fell, Jack and Alana arrived at a new safe house, a secluded cabin in the mountains that offered a higher level of security. The cabin was equipped with advanced defenses and concealed from prying eyes. Inside the cabin, Jack and Alana began to set up their new base of operations. The tension was palpable, and Jack could sense the weight of the challenges that lay ahead. The Covenant was closing in, and every move they made would be scrutinized. In the stillness of the night, Jack took a moment to reflect on the journey so far. He had come a long way from the life he once knew, and the path ahead was filled with uncertainty. But he was no longer just a man searching for answers. He was now a guardian of an ancient legacy, facing dangers he had never imagined. As he prepared for the days ahead, Jack knew that he would need every ounce of courage and strength he had gained. The Covenant's pursuit was relentless, and the stakes were higher than ever. But with Alana's guidance and his own determination, he was ready to face whatever challenges awaited him. The final confrontation, the rugged mountains surrounding Jack's new safe house, stood as silent sentinels, their peaks shrouded in mist and mystery. The remote cabin, nestled in a hidden valley, offered a temporary respite from the relentless pursuit of the Covenant. But Jack knew that peace was fleeting, the Covenant's reach was extensive, and their determination unyielding. As dawn broke over the mountains, Jack and Alana were already at work, finalizing their plans and preparing for the imminent confrontation. The cabin had become a hub of activity with maps, surveillance feeds, and tactical equipment scattered across the table. The air was charged with anticipation and a sense of urgency. "We have to be prepared for anything," Alana said, her voice steady as she reviewed the latest intelligence reports. "The Covenant will be on high alert. They know you're close, and they won't hesitate to use all their resources to find you." Jack nodded, his expression resolute. "What's our plan?" Alana's eyes flicked to the monitor displaying a live feed from a nearby surveillance camera. "We've identified a potential location where the Covenant might be setting up a base of operations. It's an old abandoned factory about 20 miles from here. We believe they're using it as a staging ground for their search." Jack's heart raced at the thought of confronting the Covenant. "How do we approach this?" Alana looked at him with a determined expression. "We'll need to be strategic. First, we'll gather more information about their setup. We need to understand their numbers, their defenses, and their objectives. Once we have that, we can formulate a plan to neutralize their threat and secure the relic." As they prepared to leave the cabin, Jack felt a surge of adrenaline. The days of training and preparation had led to this moment, and he was ready to face whatever awaited him. The journey to the abandoned factory was a tense one, the landscape growing increasingly desolate as they approached their destination. The factory loomed in the distance, a massive structure of steel and concrete, its exterior weathered and decaying. The surrounding area was eerily quiet, the only sound being the occasional creak of rusted metal and the whisper of the wind through the broken windows. Alana and Jack approached the factory cautiously, using the cover of darkness to their advantage. They moved through the shadows, their senses heightened as they surveyed the perimeter. The factory was heavily guarded, with sentries patrolling the area and surveillance cameras mounted at strategic points. "We need to get inside without being detected," Alana whispered, pointing to a small service entrance on the side of the factory. "That's our best chance of gaining access." Jack nodded, his mind focused on the task at hand. He and Alana made their way to the service entrance, carefully avoiding the patrolling guards and disabling the surveillance cameras as they went. The entrance was locked, but Alana had prepared for this. With a few deft movements, she picked the lock and they slipped inside. The interior of the factory was a labyrinth of corridors and machinery, the air heavy with the scent of rust and decay. Alana led the way, her movements precise and deliberate as she guided Jack through the maze of passageways. They encountered several security measures, but with Alana's expertise, they were able to bypass them without alerting the guards. After what felt like hours of navigating the factory's interior, they reached a large control room. Through the reinforced glass windows, they could see the central operations area filled with Covenant agents and high-tech equipment. "This is it," Alana said, her voice barely a whisper. "We need to find out what they're planning and neutralize their operations." Jack and Alana carefully positioned themselves to observe the control room, their eyes scanning the monitors and conversations taking place. The Covenant agents were discussing their plans, their voices low but urgent. "We've got confirmation," one agent said, pointing to a map on the wall. "The target is somewhere in this region. We need to intensify the search and secure the perimeter." Jack's heart sank as he realized the scope of the Covenant's operation. They were mobilizing resources and increasing their efforts to capture him and the relic. The stakes were higher than ever and time was running out. Alana's gaze was intense as she formulated a plan. "We need to create a diversion to draw the agents away from the control room. Once we have their attention focused elsewhere, we could disable their operations and secure the area." Jack agreed, and they began to prepare their diversion. Alana set up a series of small explosive devices strategically placed to cause a controlled disturbance. The goal was to create enough chaos to distract the agents without causing unnecessary damage. With everything in place, they triggered the diversion. The factory was suddenly filled with the sound of explosions and alarms, and the agents scrambled to respond. Amid the confusion, Jack and Alana moved swiftly, making their way into the central operations area. They encountered several Covenant agents along the way, engaging in brief but intense confrontations. Jack's training and Alana's guidance proved invaluable as they navigated the battles, their movements coordinated and efficient. Finally, they reached the heart of the operations center, where a large console controlled the factory's systems. Alana quickly set to work, overriding the controls and disabling the security measures. The factory's lights flickered and dimmed as the systems went offline. With the immediate threat neutralized, Jack and Alana turned their attention to securing the relic. They knew that the Covenant's plans extended beyond this factory, and the relic's safety was paramount. As they prepared to leave the factory, Jack felt a sense of accomplishment and relief. The battle had been fierce, but they had succeeded in thwarting the Covenant's plans and securing the relic. The factory was now a shell of its former self, the remnants of the confrontation a testament to their efforts. As they made their way back to the safe house, Jack reflected on the journey he had undertaken. He had faced unimaginable challenges and uncovered truths that had transformed his understanding of himself and his legacy. The path ahead was still uncertain, but he felt a renewed sense of purpose and determination. Back at the cabin, Alana and Jack settled into a moment of quiet. The immediate danger had passed, but the future remained unpredictable. They knew that the Covenant would not give up easily and that there were still many challenges ahead. "You did well," Alana said, her voice filled with respect. "We've made a significant impact, but there's more to be done." Jack nodded, his expression resolute. "I'm ready for whatever comes next. The relic's legacy is important, and I'm committed to protecting it." As they prepared for the future, Jack knew that his journey was far from over. The relic's power and significance were far-reaching, and his role as its guardian would continue to shape his destiny. But with Alana's support and his own determination, he was ready to face the challenges that lay ahead. As the sun set over the mountains, casting a warm glow over the landscape, Jack felt a sense of peace. The battles fought and the victories achieved have forged a new path for him, one filled with purpose, courage, and the promise of a future shaped by the legacy he had inherited. Echoes of the future. The early morning sun filtered through the dusty windows of the cabin, casting a soft golden light across the room. The remnants of the previous day's battle lay scattered around, torn maps, discarded equipment, and the faint scent of smoke lingering in the air. Jack and Alana had spent the night analyzing the aftermath and strategizing their next moves. The cabin, once a haven, now felt like a command center brimming with both triumph and trepidation. Jack, now more resolute than ever, stood by the window, staring out at the rugged landscape. The mountains seemed to whisper secrets, their peaks still cloaked in the remnants of dawn's mist. The relic's significance had become clearer with each passing day, but so had the magnitude of the responsibility that came with it. The Covenant's pursuit was a constant reminder of the powerful forces at play. Alana entered the room, her expression thoughtful. "We got new intel," she said, her voice steady. "Our sources indicate that the Covenant is planning a major operation in the coming weeks. They're consolidating their forces and focusing their efforts on a specific target." Jack turned to her, his brow furrowed. "What target?" Alana handed him a file, her gaze unwavering. "The relic's location. They've intercepted communications suggesting that they've identified a potential site where the relic might be hidden. It's a remote archaeological dig site, known for uncovering ancient artifacts." Jack's heart sank. If they get their hands on the relic, it could be catastrophic. Alana nodded. "We need to act quickly. We have to get to the dig site before they do and ensure that the relic is protected." As they prepared for their journey, Jack couldn't shake the feeling that the stakes had been raised even higher. The relic's significance was not just a matter of personal legacy. It was a key to something far greater, and its power could reshape the world. The Covenant's relentless pursuit only underscored the gravity of their mission. The drive to the archaeological site was long and arduous, the terrain growing more treacherous as they approached their destination. The site itself was nestled in a remote valley, surrounded by dense forests and rocky outcrops. It was a place of both historical significance and natural beauty, its tranquility a stark contrast to the turmoil Jack and Alana had faced. Upon arrival, they surveyed the area from a distance. The dig site was bustling with activity, archaeologists and excavation teams working diligently to uncover ancient relics. But Jack and Alana knew that the Covenant's presence was hidden, lurking behind the scenes. "We need to get closer and gather more information," Alana said, her eyes scanning the site. "We'll blend in with the team and see if we can identify any Covenant operatives." Jack and Alana approached the dig site under the guise of archaeologists, their movements calculated and deliberate. They mingled with the team, observing the excavation process and listening for any signs of Covenant activity. The atmosphere was tense but controlled. The diggers focused on their work as if unaware of the impending threat. As they worked, Jack's attention was drawn to a group of individuals who seemed out of place. They were dressed in plain clothes but carried themselves with a sense of authority and purpose. Jack's instincts told him that they were Covenant operatives, and their presence confirmed his fears. "We need to find out what they're up to," Jack whispered to Alana. "If they're here, they must have a plan." Alana nodded, her expression grim. "We'll have to be discreet. Let's follow them and see if we can uncover their intentions." They trailed the operatives through the site, their movements stealthy and careful. The operatives made their way to a secluded part of the dig area, where a series of underground tunnels had been uncovered. Jack and Alana watched from a hidden vantage point as the operatives entered the tunnels, their equipment indicating that they were preparing for something significant. Jack and Alana waited until the operatives were deep within the tunnels before making their move. They slipped into the excavation area and made their way to the entrance of the tunnels. The darkness within was impenetrable, and the air was cool and damp. As they descended into the tunnels, Jack's heart raced. The narrow passageways seemed to stretch on endlessly, their walls lined with ancient inscriptions and symbols. The sense of history and mystery was palpable, and the weight of their mission pressed heavily on their shoulders. They navigated the tunnels with caution, their footsteps echoing through the labyrinthine passages. The tunnels eventually opened into a large chamber, its walls adorned with intricate carvings and artifacts. At the center of the chamber stood a pedestal, upon which rested a relic, a small ornate box covered in ancient runes. Jack's eyes widened as he recognized the relic. It was the artifact that had been the focus of their search, the key to the Covenant's plans. The operatives were gathered around the pedestal, their expressions a mix of anticipation and determination. "We have to act now," Alana said, her voice barely audible. "We need to secure the relic and stop them from taking it." Jack and Alana moved swiftly, using their training to subdue the Covenant operatives. The confrontation was intense but brief, their skills and coordination proving to be a decisive advantage. With the operatives incapacitated, Jack approached the pedestal and carefully examined the relic. The artifact was more elaborate than he had imagined, its surface etched with symbols and designs that seemed to glow faintly. Jack felt a sense of awe and reverence as he realized the true magnitude of its power. The relic was not just a key. It was a conduit for ancient forces that had shaped the course of history. "We need to secure the relic and get out of here," Alana said, her voice urgent. "The Covenant will regroup and we can't afford to be caught off guard." Jack nodded, carefully placing the relic in a protective case. As they prepared to leave the tunnels, Jack felt a profound sense of accomplishment. They had prevented the Covenant from obtaining the artifact, but the challenges were far from over. As they emerged from the tunnels and made their way back to the surface, the first light of dawn was breaking over the horizon. The peaceful surroundings of the dig site now seemed like a sanctuary, a moment of calm amidst the chaos. Back at the cabin, Jack and Alana took stock of their situation. The relic was safely secured, but the Covenant's plans had undoubtedly been disrupted. Jack knew that their victory was only temporary. The Covenant's pursuit would continue, and the responsibility of protecting the relic was a lifelong commitment. As they sat together, reflecting on their journey, Jack felt a renewed sense of purpose. The challenges he had faced had tested his strength and resolve, but they had also revealed his true potential. The relic's legacy was now a part of his life, and he was determined to honor it with every action he took. "The future is uncertain," Alana said, her voice thoughtful. "But we made a difference. The Covenant's plans have been thwarted, and the relic is safe for now." Jack nodded, his expression resolute. "I'm ready for whatever comes next. The legacy of the relic is important, and I'll do everything in my power to protect it." As the sun set over the mountains, Jack and Alana prepared for the future. The battles fought and the victories achieved had shaped their understanding of the world and their place within it. The relic's power was a reminder of the forces that shaped their destinies, and its protection was a responsibility they would carry with unwavering commitment. The echoes of their journey would resonate far beyond the mountains, shaping the course of their lives and the legacy they would leave behind. And as they looked to the future, they knew that the challenges they faced would only strengthen their resolve and determination.